You're watching National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasts, 70 shows, and a 3.5-star rating on Roku TV. Check out nessp.info for direct links and deals on the site Bet Us for 125% off your first three deposits in NFL and college odds for upcoming games, Major League Baseball and NBA futures, and boxing wagers. Also, check out Fanatics, sportswear for your favorite teams, and also network merchandise, retro, Northeast Streaming Sports, National Streaming Sports, Big Football, and the Mac and Jack Sports Show t-shirts. Coffee mugs are coming soon. Check it out. Yes, sir. Go Big Blue. Go New York Giants. Welcome to the best New York Giants show on the internet. I'm your host, the Macman, with Big Bobby G, Bobby Giggy, coming out. And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight, folks. Got a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to the Giants. And, Bob, before we start, I want to get this out of the way, okay? Now, I hate blaming officials for calls and losing games. And Lord knows we didn't lose the game just because of the officials. But I got a couple of photos I want to show everybody. This is actually evidence of how bad the referees are calling the games, especially down in the end zone. Now, as you notice here, number 13 with the star on the helmet, I guess he's a New York Giant, got called for face masking. The guy in blue who has the New York symbol on his helmet. So I guess he's a Dallas Cowboy. And so we got a 15-yard penalty after Daniel Jones made a 15-yard run. Got within the 15-yard line with a first down, and we've been like first and goal at the 8-yard line. The next one was a pickup flag where they actually called the Dallas Cowboys for holding, and then they said, well, no, they did not. They really didn't hold it. As you could see, number 1 for the Cowboys is not holding number 44 for the Giants, as number 23 runs into the end zone. Again, we were down there a few times. We could have scored a few times we were there. And we didn't talk about this before, but I want to go off a little bit here on principles of coaching. And when I coach, and I told you before, I did coach the town program, I got with 12 and 13-year-old kids. I was up to the highest level before I went out to high school. And I brought in the shotgun formation. Now, everybody says, like, what the hell are you doing, right? This is back in 1996. And I spread them out. I had 5 receivers, and they started in a regular set, and they all spread out. Of course, you see the other coach's faces, like, what is going on here? And we call it a 4-minute offense because we don't have timeouts like the NFL does and everything. So it runs fast. And with 4 minutes left in the first half and 4 minutes left at the end of the game, I would do this. And if we were way behind or we needed to catch up, I would do this. It worked out pretty well. In fact, I brought it to me with the high school up to Enfield High. They used it too, and they weren't using it at the time. But I could do it with 12 and 13-year-old kids, knowing that I had a 2-minute offense. Now, the Giants had a shot driving down the field, going into some kind of offense that would get them close to the red zone. They get close to the red zone. And what happened to the game plan there, Bobby? What is the game plan for us when we get down within the 30-yard line? I don't see a game plan. I see them, okay, we're going to run the ball up the middle, line up for the field goal, and kick a field goal. And I didn't see them do anything as far as trying to get the ball into the end zone against the Cowboys.
No, and hello, Mac. How are you?
How we doing, Bobby?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. They were driving me crazy on Thursday night. Every time we would get down into the red zone, we seemed to run the ball twice up the middle for no yards, and then pass the ball not into the end zone, but to the 5-yard line, to the 3-yard line, to the 6-yard line. They might have did it once. I don't remember it. I don't remember the Giants throwing the ball into the end zone at any given time when they were down there against a Dallas team that basically has been shredded.
Yeah.
On defense the last few weeks.
Yeah.
You're talking now. I understand you're talking about the game plan. So I would think their game plan was to run the ball because everyone's run the ball against Dallas. They've given up, 300 something yards over the last 2 weeks on the ground. Unfortunately for the Giants, they were 1.1 per carry for the whole game. They had a total of 24 yards on 23 runs.
Yeah.
So at some point, and you're a play caller, at some point you got to say, look, this isn't working. We need to be a little more aggressive. We need to try to turn the table. So now I understand people are going to say, well, they took some shots down the field and they weren't successful because Daniel Jones was short of some of these shots. It's still not good enough. As good as a game manager Jones was against Washington and against Dallas, something's missing there. And I don't know if it's going back to your point. I don't know if the coaches aren't putting the players in the position to make plays and to be successful, or the players aren't good enough to be successful in the plays that the coaches are putting them in position to make a play in. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I seem to remember Jones throwing a Bellinger a lot a couple of years ago in the end zone when they were down there. We had a tall receiver, I forget his name, he was from Buffalo, that he threw to a lot down by the end zone. Neighbors is not a small guy, at least he can go up. And I know Theo is a big guy too. We have big tight ends. They're 6'6". They're huge. They're big guys. Why aren't we dialing them up to go one-on-one? If you watch Kansas City or any good offense, and in fact, Baltimore did it last night, right? Baltimore has plays designed to go to the end zone, whether it's a sweep, whether it's a misdirection, the tight end looks like he's blocking, he turns out, bang, touchdown. It looks simple. I know it's not simple. I know it's not. But I know we can do the same thing. I know that we have the tight ends that can fake like they're blocking and turn out. I know we got a big tight ends that you could at least throw a jump ball to and maybe make that play. I know Slayton is about 6'2". I mean, we have some height, but we're just not doing it. And I think I don't like just blaming the head coach for that. But listen, he's calling the plays. I mean, every team, Bobby, I know, every NFL player I have talked to, they work on their red zone at least once a week to run the red zone plays. It didn't look like they did. And I get that people ran on the Cowboys. I get it. But the Cowboys were stuffing us at the line of scrimmage against the run. So we got to do what we have to do. And losing 20-15 when one of those touchdowns that we kicked as a field goal was one of those touchdowns, or maybe two of those touchdowns, hey, we win the game. I just don't get what the Dable's thinking and why he's not supposed to be a great offensive coordinator. Supposed to be, help Josh Allen become a great quarterback and all this stuff. Well, what's going on now? I mean, why aren't we doing this?
A couple things, and I think I mentioned this to you, that I feel the coach is coaching scared.
Yeah.
I know. I'm sure he reads. I'm sure he reads the newspapers. I'm sure he sees, the headlines. I'm sure he hears the whispers behind his back. I mean, Canty had the sharp knives out from this week, saying that he's a dead man walking, basically, after just a quarter of the season's being over. I'm not ready to go down that road with Chris yet, but Canty thinks that he is actually probably done because of this game that was just occurred. And again, when we'll talk about the upcoming games towards the end of the show today, but I looked at the next 5 games, and I don't see them being favored in any of them.
I don't either.
So I don't know, to go back to your point, is the coach coaching scared? Is he hoping to get back down there? We'll score the next time. We'll kick the field goal this time. We'll kick the field goal the next time. And then maybe the third time, oh, no, we're going to kick the field goal again. It just reminds me of Jim Fossil. When Jim Fossil was the year before he was let go, the Giants were just beating up on the 49ers in a playoff game. And they were scoring at will. Ended up losing that game. And I swear the next year, Jim Fossil coached that whole season scared. And that's what Gabs is kind of reminding me of right now. I think he's coaching scared. I mean, I don't know what you think. I don't know if the game plan's not right. You mentioned the tight end. You mentioned the phantom face mask. On all my years of watching football, and I watched football for a long time, I have never seen a referee call a penalty on the person that was being penalized.
I agree. And again, there's no repercussions, Bobby. There's nothing said. There's like, okay, you screwed up, so what? I mean, if a player breaks the rules, if a player does something he's not supposed to do that is unbecoming the Shield, he gets fined at least. At the very least, he gets fined. If his socks are not right. If his socks aren't right, they'll fine you. But yet it's okay for him to make a totally wrong call on the wrong team. And I don't even want to go on.
Oh, I know. It was maddening because you're right. We were on an 8-yard line, and I know we're kind of jumping around here because these things are all hitting my head when you're asking questions about the goal. What we're doing at the goal line and how we're getting down there, and we're making plays, and we're getting penalized for making plays.
It was incredible.
It was incredible. It was incredible. But back to what we talked about the tight ends being involved.
Yes.
Theo Johnson is getting a lot more playing time. The Giants, I believe this. The Giants team, he's a bigger, faster, more athletic tight end. He might not have the experience that Bellinger has, but the Giants see that he has a lot more. His qualities are a much higher ceiling than where Bellinger's is at this point. So how do you get better? You got to play.
Yeah.
If you want to be a good basketball shooter, you go into the basket, you go into the park, and you shoot basketballs.
100%.
You want to be a great hitter, you go in the cage and you just take your swings. You want to be a better football player, the only way to learn it is to get out there and make mistakes.
100%. So the Giant defense played well enough to win. I mean, they really did. You hold Dallas to 20 points.
20 points. I mean,
they held Washington to 20 points. Cleveland, I forget what this final score was. I think Cleveland had 10 points or 13 points, whatever. The defense is playing really well, and it seems to be getting better, which is encouraging. I think they're going to keep the Giants in games. So, it's not the defense's fault. I think that the new defensive coordinator is starting to dial up the blitz a little bit more and helping out the defensive backs. And I think our linebackers are pretty good. I like our front line there. We can stop the run pretty well. I mean, Dallas only ran for like 49 yards on us, so it wasn't like they were running the ball over us. It was just once in a while they make a play. And of course, CeeDee Lamb had a big play, but that didn't win the game. That was 7 points. And I love our defense. They're going to keep us in games. But, man, and Bobby, why don't we have one big back? Just one. All I want is one. All I want is one big. Just give me one big back that's going to pick me up a yard.
Yeah, I know.
Hand the ball off to Bellinger. Hand the ball off to Theo. Let the tight end run with it like the Patriots used to do. I don't care. Why don't we have that one big guy like we had with Jacobs he's gonna run hard as he can. He's gonna smash into that line and pick up that foot or that yard. I don't get it.
We had a fullback. They didn't utilize him enough. So
Yes.
we did have a fullback on the roster. Now, why they're not doing what you're saying, again, goes back to game planning, goes back to coaching, goes back to putting players in position to make plays so that you can win games. And somehow, some way, the Giants are scoring less points, averaging less points this year than they did last year.
Isn't that unbelievable?
That's scary weird. Personnel.
And they only sacked Jones once.
I know.
Micah Parsons got to him once.
The Giants' offensive line did a heck of a job keeping them off.
They look great in between the 20s. They look great in between the 20s. And you can't win like that. Like that.
I mean, you're looking at some of the grades here. You got two offensive linemen, Runyon and Elamenior. I can't say this guy's name. Elamenior. I can't say his name. Elamenior. You got two offensive linemen being one of the top 5 graded players on the offense.
Yeah.
Actually, take that back. You had 3. Andrew Thomas was also there. So you have 3 of the top 5 graded players on the offense in a game are offensive linemen, and we still can't score, and we can't run the ball. How is that possible?
Maybe it's the ball. Maybe it is the ball. I don't know. Maybe it is Dable. I don't know.
Everything kind of points back to him, I think. And as you said, he's supposed to be this offensive genius, and he's coached with great people. He coached with Belichick.
Yeah.
He coached with Saban down in Alabama. So he's been around a lot of people who know a lot of football and are very good at football. And so he's learned from some of the best in the league. I don't know. I don't see the results.
I don't either.
I know if it's a big back, if it's a tight end. Last week we were kind of on the tight ends. We're on the tight ends again this week. The defense did give up some big plays. I think Banks kind of slowed down at the very end of Lamb's touchdown. I'd like to see him go back to the sidelines and see Harry Carson and Lawrence Taylor standing there and ask him, "What are you doing, son? You keep running. I don't care if you catch him or not."
I would too. I know the efforts.
I beat him up last week too, but I'm not trying to pick on him because he's supposed to be number 1 draft pick. He's our number 1 cornerback. But he's not. He has not been in the top. He has not graded in the top 5 defensive players graded wise this year yet.
And of course. Next week, which we'll get to, we're going up against a pretty good passing team too, so that's going to be very interesting. You brought up somebody. We talked about Hall of Fames, and we're going to get to our player of the week too in a minute here. And you brought up Hall of Fame players that were on Giant teams that didn't get in the Hall of Fame yet. And we talked a little bit about some of the players that, for some reason, Bobby, they forget about him, right? Like a Phil Simms or another great player and not just the Giants. It's all players.
Sure.
They pass by him and then that's it. They're up and they're qualified and then they forget about him. And I guess that's why they have the old folks voting thing there.
Senior.
Yeah. They get them together once a year. They play bingo and they vote in the players. But O.J. Anderson, who played for the Cardinals, was a very fast for a big man, very fast big man. He had a heck of a career for the Cardinals. He comes over to the Giants, and he's there with Joe Morris in the beginning. He was more our big back for a while. Then he became our exclusive back. During that one Super Bowl, we went to a 90. And I remember Bill Parcells saying to him after the game, after he got the MVP, "I think you just got into the Hall of Fame with the season you had." He ran for over 1,000 yards. Again, I don't know how he stacks up against other running backs as far as yardage and all this stuff. He is a 2-time Super Bowl champion because he was with the Giants in '86. He was one of the better running backs in the league. I don't know. I mean, is he Hall of Fame worthy? You think?
Yes, he should be in the Hall of Fame. I remember watching him play the Giants when he was with the Cardinals. And he was one of the, and it's really what you do during your time. What I feel makes a Hall of Famer. Were you the best at your position during the longevity, or at least a big part of your career, which he was? He was one of the best running backs. I think when he retired, only 6 running backs or 7 running backs had more all-purpose yards than he did. And most of those backs were in the Hall of Fame. And he didn't get in for some reason. I know, and I've read articles about it, Harry Carson, Lawrence Taylor, some of the older Giants, they said he was the person that they most hated to play against from the running back position. Twice because back then the Cardinals were in the Giants division.
Right.
So they'd see him twice a year for basically most of his career until he became a Giant. They saw him twice a year. So if someone like 2 Hall of Famers and 2 great football players, I don't care if they play for the Giants, play for somebody else, and they're banging the drum for someone like him to get in there, then yes, I truly believe Anderson belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Well, like I told you before, Jim Chefcoat, former Cowboy, said that he was one of the hardest guys. He played against Earl Campbell, and he said the hardest guy he had to bring down was Otis Anderson, and that's telling you something from one of the better ball players in the league at that time. And I tend to agree with you. I think once it goes past the stage, and again, maybe OJ comes up years from now, maybe he gets nominated again by the old folks home there, and maybe he gets in, hopefully. I mean, I agree with you. I think that's one of the backs, or one of the Giants players that should be in there. And with that, let's talk about a guy. And I got a couple trivia questions for you, Bobby.
Oh, great.
First of all,
I can answer them.
I think you can. The first one's going to be easy. Now, a lot of people, they don't know the New York Giants name is actually the New York Football Giants. That is their official name.
Right.
Could you explain to them out there why they're called the New York Giants football team?
I think I can.
Okay.
Because when the Giants were playing back in the 20s and 30s, there was also another team in New York that was called the Giants.
Yes.
And that was they would become the San Francisco Giants.
Right.
And they would leave the Polo Grounds and take up shop in San Francisco. So that's why they were called the New York Football Giants, not to be confused with the New York Baseball Giants.
Correct. And I knew you'd get that one. That was pretty easy because I know how much you know about the Giants. And of course, there was a lot of teams that had that. The Bears were named after the Chicago Cubs because they used the Cubs field way back when in Chicago. So there's a lot of that happening. So the next guy we're going to talk about, let me put up his picture, is Brad Van Pelt. Brad Van Pelt was outside linebacker for the Giants. In '81, he went to one playoff game. He was part of the it wasn't the Big Blue Wrecking Crew, Bobby. It was called something else. I think it was called the Crunch Bunch. Harry Carson. Hughes was the middle linebacker, number 56 at the time, and Lawrence Taylor had just come in to the thing, and they called him the Crunch Bunch. And again, of course, after that was the Big Blue Wrecking Crew. But he has a number that's not Fran Tarkenton. He's a little too big to be Fran Tarkenton, and a little too fast to be Eli Manning. So when Eli Manning's jersey got retired, I guess Brad Van Pelt's jersey got retired too. Do you know why he had that number 10?
I believe because he was a backup long snapper.
Close, but that would have been a lineman. He would have had the right with the 7.
And he was a backup quarterback or a punter. One of those 3.
Backup kicker. You were right there. That's why they allowed him to wear number 10 because he was a backup kicker. And I didn't know that till I looked it up, to be honest with you. I mean, I was like, number 10, that looked weird on the field back then. You wore the 50s or the 60s or whatever when you were a linebacker. You had certain jerseys, not like today where you can wear 0 or 1 or whatever.
That was close because the snapper snaps the ball to the punter. Yes. So I was close. I was in a special teams arena area somewhere.
I'm going to give you half a point, Bob, right now for that. You were close. You were very close. But yeah, unlike today, it's different. So Brad Van Pelt, we've talked about before. Again, 5 Pro Bowls. He's in the College Hall of Fame. He was unbelievable at Michigan. And all around. I mean, he played basketball, football, baseball, but he's in the College Hall of Fame because how good he was. I think he was with Michigan or Michigan State. I think it's Michigan, Bobby. I think
Michigan. It was Michigan.
Yeah.
He was actually the athlete, the high school athlete of the year in Michigan. I don't know how. Normally they would pick football players or baseball players, but I guess back then they was whoever the best athlete was in Michigan. It was Brad Van Pelt coming out of high school.
Yeah. They had one guy talking. I don't have his name in front of me, but said he looked like a man playing with boys when he played high school basketball because he was a big guy. He was 6'5", 230, 240. He was a big guy.
Big, strong, athletic. I mean, yeah. Last week you were talking about, I said one of my favorite, New York Giants was Mendenhall. We talked about him last week, and Brad Van Pelt is certainly, right on that same plateau that I feel of the John Mendenhall, in my mind, anyways. Both players, I believe, should be in the Hall of Fame, but that's beside the point. I think we were kind of talking at the end of when we were done last week, and we were talking about not a funny story, but a story of how Brad Van Pelt became a New York Giant.
Yes,
and it's a twisty, turny type of road that got him to New York. So you mentioned Fran Tarkenton. He actually gets Fran's jersey. The Giants trade Fran Tarkenton back to the Minnesota where he started his career, back to the Minnesota Vikings. And the Vikings then give the Giants a running back who was Vinnie Clemens, a wide receiver who was Bob Grimm, and a quarterback named Norm Snead, who had a couple of good years for us. So but we also got our first round draft pick the following year, and we got a second round draft pick the following year. So we got a pretty good haul. I mean, that's a nice haul for a quarterback. But of course, Fran did go to Super Bowls and lead the Vikings to Super Bowls, and that's so who would have known? Maybe he would have been leading the Giants. I don't know. But anyways, Fran did have a nice career with the Vikings. So we get those 3 players. And interestingly enough, Vinnie Clemens, who's from Southington, Connecticut, becomes an assistant coach at Plainville High School, where I went to school. Years after I graduated, but Vinnie Clemens was an assistant high school coach at Plainville High School. So I
remember watching him play softball behind Uncle Arion Sharon's house when he was in the softball league.
Okay.
So very, very interesting. Is he still around? Is Vinnie Clemens still around?
That I don't know. That's the last thing I heard of him. He was on the staff. I know he played with the head coach of the Giants. That head coach of the Plainville Blue Devils in high school. So they were friends anyways.
Yes.
So that's good. It's an interesting tidbit of a little bit of somebody from Connecticut, local kid making it pretty big.
Yeah.
So the Giants get a first round draft pick. They end up drafting a defensive lineman. I don't know his name. It's one of those players that he didn't pan out.
Right.
I'm sure I read his name once or twice. I don't know it. But the following year, in the second round, the Giants draft Brad Van Pelt.
Right.
But the Cardinals, the baseball Cardinals, draft Brad Van Pelt to be a pitcher.
Right.
And Wellington Mara did something that was unheard of at the time. The Cardinals offered Van Pelt $100,000 to play baseball. Wellington Mara offered him $400,000, all guaranteed. And for the first couple of years, Van Pelt kept getting hurt. So I'm sure Mara was scratching his head, asking himself, why in God's name did I guarantee all this money to this kid who can't stay on the field? And interestingly enough, Marty Schottenheimer, who becomes is the Giants linebacker coach then, and he knew right away. He said, this kid's going to be special. And he was.
And he was. And he definitely was. He was like that Jack Ham kind of linebacker, maybe a little bit bigger, could cover the tight ends and could blitz. And as you said, was a very good athlete. I again, I know we're being a little biased because they're Giants, but the guy was really a playmaker on the field. One of the original of the Giant linebackers with Harry Carson and LT. And of course, after that, Kelly comes and Banks come and they replace him. And yeah, he again, you know, when you're watching teams growing up, even bad teams, and you didn't have a choice to go anywhere else. You had that game, and that was the game, and you watched it. You know, you learn to appreciate players, and Brad was one of those players you appreciate. I think, Bobby, we're going to do Spider Lockhart next week.
That sounds good.
Spider
like
Lockhart,
yeah,
all pro. I got a great story about Spider Lockhart and Yale Bowl. I got a great story about him.
okay.
Where I actually met him. So we'll wait for that. There's a little tease for you guys. A personal story about Spider Lockhart and Yale Bowl. So which is where we went and watched the Giants play. We couldn't go to New York anyway. We could have, I guess, but whatever.
We went as a family. We went as a family. Watched the games at Yale. We always watched the last game was the Jets and the Giants.
Yes.
We always got that. And back then it was the last preseason game was kind of a dress rehearsal. Yeah. So the starters played well into the third quarter, sometimes into the fourth quarter.
No doubt.
So it was a whole different type of mentality of preseason back then.
Yes, it was.
Played.
I mean, you had, I guess, because you could cut players as you went. There wasn't as many players in a practice squad. They could call it a taxi squad at the time, right? Where you had some players that were on there. I remember some of the players coming up for the taxi squad, but it wasn't 53 players. I forget how many exactly it was. But they had players that were jockeying for positions. Everybody seemed like they were in a bubble, and head coaches. It wasn't like you had a guaranteed job next year. They didn't say that unless you were a superstar. I mean, LT and Carson, they had their jobs. But a lot of those guys came back, and it's like, listen, dude, if you don't perform, you're not going to make it here. I remember Byron Williams told me the story, Bobby, and I don't know if I ever told you this. If Parcells has a bad year his first year back in '83, I think it was, he went 3-13.
He did.
And he wanted to be everybody's friend. He wanted to be like a head coach like Ray Perkins, and it didn't work.
No.
So he talks to a couple people, and he comes back and he says, I'm just going to be me. And all these players were our injured reserve, right, that coming into the next season. He sent them all home. He said, if you can't play, you're not going to be here. Sent them all home. So the guys that weren't really hurt, they got it together. The guys that were like, loafing in that, you don't need you. We got plenty of players coming in here. And that sent the message that 1 year, boom, we're coming here to play football. And he changed. He went back to being what he was as a linebacker and a defensive coordinator, a hard ass, right? He said, I can't be everybody's friend. And that was a big wake-up call for him. So anyway, Byron Williams, he told me, he goes, I come to practice and I forget my playbook. So I go over to Parcells and I say, listen, coach, forgot my playbook. He said, all right, here's the keys to the car. He gave him the keys to his brand new car to go get his playbook. So he wasn't a total hard ass. If you were willing to put in the work, he would reward you. But yeah. So anyway, a little story about Parcells there about as far as the way coaches go now.
I got a story too, just real quick.
Go ahead.
Jim Burt was, I don't think he was a draft pick, but I think he was a free agent and signed after the draft. Not a free agent. So he was signed after the draft, and he slept under his bed all through training camp because he was afraid that someone's going to knock on his door and tell him to grab your playbook and bring it to coach, please. He slept underneath his bed so no one could find him at night.
Yes.
So
I hope I can get these guys. Like I said, I've got to send out some emails to some of the players that played, because some of the stories they tell you are unbelievable. I mean, they're not unbelievable. It's just so different than it was back than it is today. So I'll definitely start working on that. Let's get a little bit to let's start a little bit on next week's game, and then we'll talk about the NFC East. Seattle Seahawks, for some reason, have the Giants number. I don't remember the last time we've beaten the Seahawks, Bobby, to be honest with you. I don't know if we beat them last year, the year before that. I don't know, but it seems that Seattle has their number. They got one of the best receiving cores in the league to be playing tonight. I think they got almost close to 800 yards passing so far this year, and that's only in 4 games. This will be their fourth game. That's unbelievable. DJ Metcalf, Lockhart, the rookie they got there. They got a pretty good running back that stepped up. Geno Smith is pretty accurate, and he's an athlete. And I said, we'll find out how good they are tonight, maybe. But again, one of these games that we're going to have to defense is going to have to shut down those wide receivers, put pressure on Geno, and hopefully hold them down to around 20, 21 points. And the Giants offense has got to do something this week, this upcoming week, if we're gonna get a W.
Well, they're gonna have to do a better job on Smith than they did on Prescott last weekend. It feels like on a Thursday night game, it feels like it was a week ago already. But on Thursday night, I think they sacked him once, and that was Thibodeau got a sack. That was the only sack we got. The week before, 9 sacks or 25 sacks, whatever we had was awesome.
Right.
We only had, and I believe we only hit him 3 times. So if you're going to do that, I don't care who the quarterback is. If that's what you're going to do to an NFL quarterback who has good receivers, who has a good offensive line and a good running back behind him, you're in for a long day.
Yeah.
So the guys are going to have to do a lot better job getting after Smith than did after Prescott, or they're going to find themselves with another loss, and we'll be looking at a 1-4 start, which is unacceptable.
You brought up an excellent point before we went on the show. It's going to be a short week for Seattle. We got a few extra days. Seattle is playing Detroit tonight. Detroit's a pretty physical team, and
yes.
I don't know if Seattle's going to be able to withstand going to Detroit and win the game or not. They might. I mean, if Geno gets hot, maybe they do. I imagine Detroit's going to try to run the ball on Seattle, just like we're going to try and run the ball on Seattle and keep them off the field. But that short week I don't know if that helps them or hurts them. Are we going to Seattle? Is that where we're going next week, Bobby?
Going to Seattle. So we're coming off a kind of a mini bye, if you will. And we got to go to the West Coast. So there's a good time to go to the West Coast. It was this time. I thought. This was before the game on Thursday night. Looking a little bit ahead. So, okay, we win. If we could beat Dallas, we have a nice long bye. They're playing Monday night. We have a mini bye. They're on a short week. And I thought maybe we could beat Dallas. We could steal one out there. Yeah. And still maybe they'll steal one out there because of what. But that was that was before the Dallas game when we couldn't rush them and we couldn't sniff them and they made just enough plays to beat us. So
yes.
And I know we'll get to our picks at the end, but I think they're in for a tough game in Seattle this week. I was out in Seattle last year, and it's just a weird story. I'll say it's just strange. It's kind of funny. I'm in the men's room, and there's two Seattle fans standing next to me, and one of his buddies looks at everybody and says, and the Giants were playing Seattle. It was a Monday night when I was there. And the Giants are playing Seattle. And his buddy looks at his other buddy and says, I wish we could play the Giants every week.
Yeah.
That gives, it just gives you an idea of what outside of the New York bubble, what really fans think about you in a little snapshot of that.
Yeah.
So I think the Giants they're going to have a tough time out there, I think.
I agree too. I'll tell you the truth. I said last week that they have a terrible home record, that they're better away. No, they're not. They're just as bad, if not worse, away as they are at home. Their underdog record over the years was good. I don't know how it is now. I know Seattle. I think you told me the spread's going to be around 5.5.
I put down. I think it's 5.5. I believe it was.
Yes. So I would imagine that sounds about right. So we'll talk about it a lot more as we get closer. After the game, really. I mean, we got Sunday, Monday. Yeah, we'll talk about it after the game. We'll see what happens and we'll break it down. Hopefully, we're happy, Bobby. I hope we come in smiling and everything is good and the Giants have gone to 2-3 and they're still in the hunt here. And so let's talk a little bit about the Cowboys and the Eagles. Now, the Cowboys act like they're all that. The Cowboys nation out there, when they win, they're loud. When they don't win, they're very quiet. So, it was mixed reviews. They said, well, we beat the Giants, but we didn't have a good game. I think the Giants had something to do with that too, Cowboys. But anyway, yeah. And the Eagles are like, you guys stink. You almost got beat by the Giants. And, they come out, and then the Philly sports guy who's on this network, very popular, huge on TikTok, he goes over and he gets in the Tampa Bay boat. And he's screaming at the camera, I'm the captain now. I'm the captain now. And blah, blah, blah. I took over the ship. And, the captain goes down with the ship, as we all know. And that's basically what happened. Boy, did Tampa Bay put a smackdown on them. I know they didn't have their two big wide receivers, but their defense looked terrible. I don't know why they only gave Saquon Barkley the ball 10 times. I don't get that at all. I would imagine without your two wide receivers, you would want to get him the ball more. You would want to run the ball more. And when he did run, he ran for like 8 yards a carry. So I didn't get the game plan there either. There is something definitely wrong in the offensive side of the ball, and now in the defensive side of the ball too, Bobby. I mean, they did great against the Saints, I think it was, but they bounced right back to earth, and Tampa Bay just ate them up.
They kind of remind me of last year's Eagles team, and if I was an Eagles fan, I guess that they were kind of maddening too, because they have talent, and they had talent last year. I mean, the Giants could really last game last year really took it to them.
Yes.
So they weren't a great team last year. I understand you're going to add Barkley. You're going to get better. I know he's averaging over 100 yards a game. I mean, he's on pace right now to rush for over 1,700 yards. So I mean, he's going to bring an element that they didn't have. I'm really not sold on the quarterback still. We'll see how that goes. He has his good games. He has some bad games. Certainly, so we'll see how that goes with them. I'm not sold on their defense. I know I can't wait to play him when we line up against him.
Yeah.
Other than that, I just hate the Eagles anyways.
I'm with you. I hate them more than I hate the Cowboys, believe it or not.
I don't know about that.
Well, it's close. It's close.
If Dallas during a 17-game schedule, if they lost 17 games, it wouldn't be enough for me.
You want them to play in a playoff game and lose another.
I want them to lose 18 games in a 17-game schedule. That's how much I love Dallas.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. My co-host brought up, hey, there was no talk about Saquon Barkley. I said, Jack, that was 3 weeks ago. We're done with Saquon. Would you get off Saquon Barkley? I don't know why you would be talking about Saquon Barkley. He doesn't play with the Giants. And he's trying to jab me a little bit.
Did you read the article this week that Saquon said the Giants were never in play?
Yeah.
Never in play.
There you go.
That's what he told them.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Like I said, good luck to him before. Thursday night, you brought up during the before we went on Thursday night football. Now I'm going to give you my opinion on this real quick, and I want to hear yours. I think Chris Collinsworth is a goofball. I don't think he's that good of a color commentator at all. He talks in circles like every little thing is the greatest things he's ever seen. Example. Did you see that? Lamar Jackson ran backwards and then he ran forwards and he picked up the first down. People can do that, Chris. I mean, people have run backwards and forwards before. We practiced that during the season. He takes the smallest thing that really doesn't add to the game. All right. It really doesn't. It's like anytime somebody makes a great play, he applauds them. And it's like a cheerleader. He's almost like a cheerleader for the game. And I never liked him. I didn't like him as a receiver. I mean, he was good as a receiver. I'll give him credit. But I just never liked his personality about him.
No, I didn't like him. I didn't like him as a player. I don't like him as a commentator. I think that sometimes I think Chris likes to pretend he's the smartest person in the room. And he kind of, in some of his commentary, I feel he talks down to the fans on TV a little bit. I feel that way. And he will be simplistic, as you just said. The quarterback faded back. Oh, and then he ran forward. Okay, thank you. Do we need you to tell us that? The game itself on a Thursday night, I don't think it's
Right.
fair to the players. I don't like a Thursday night game. Maybe, and I guess if the Giants were going to play a Thursday night game, it's better to play it now because
I
you're
agree.
playing a Thursday night game. I think in November, late November, when your body's
Right.
beat pretty much, and you really need that extra 24 hours to heal up before you got to go back at it, and another 48 hours after that, Friday, Saturday, you're right back at it again in 72 hours, I should say. I don't like a Thursday night game because of that. Just like I don't like a 17 game schedule. I think Ray Lewis said it best. He said, "We're not robots.
Yeah.
You know, we're
Yeah.
flesh and blood, we hurt, and muscles tear, and bones hurt, and bodies ache." And I just think that the NFL, in its greed, has put the players in a position where they can get hurt easier. So I think that hurts the overall product. And if you lose a quarterback, or you lose a star running back or a star defensive end, you name the position. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't help the product. And I think they're putting – and I don't want people to tell me, well, they only play 3 preseason games and no one plays. We talked about preseason a little while ago. It seemed the product was better, and they played actual preseason games, and they played in the preseason. Yeah. They don't play preseason games anymore because it's a 17-game schedule. So I don't – So and that goes with the Thursday night game. I don't like it. I'm more of a traditionalist. I don't mind Monday. You want to throw in a Saturday night game? That's awesome. Or Saturday. But I understand you don't want to go up against college football. I get it. I do understand that. Friday night game, maybe. But I don't like a Thursday night. I don't like watching my team play on a Thursday night. Coming off of maybe a really tough Sunday, really football game, and they've got to bounce back really literally a few days later and play it and then tee it up again. And I know you scale back and this could have been part of the problem with the Giants. You know, I hear coaches scale back the playbook on a Thursday night. You're not going to do a full type of a range of plays for players to put them in a position to be successful. We talked about earlier, and I think a Thursday night game ruins the whole product. But so I'm not for it at all. As you can tell, I don't. Tonight.
And Bobby, I agree, and not only that, they're not great. Most Thursday night games are not that great. They're really not. They're really not. And you look at Dallas. Dallas won the game. They won the battle, but Dexter Lawrence might be out for 8 weeks, and their linebacker, the Lion there, might be out for a few weeks. Did I say Dexter Lawrence? I meant Leonard, 90 for the Cowboys. I think I said that.
No, yes, and Neighbors is in a concussion protocol right now.
Right.
We don't. He's going to be available for us on Sunday.
Right.
You're playing a set, and he played a very good game again. On that Sunday against Washington, and then he's back at it. Against the Browns, and he's back at it again against the Cowboys. And I don't like the time between the game Sunday to Thursday. I wish the NFL would look at that and maybe do away with it, but they're not going to because it's a cash cow.
No doubt, and the NFLPA could vote against a 17-game season. Could say no. They could vote against Thursday nights and next, but they're not going to either because they're making money too, and the players. Yes. And the players want the money too. It's a shame that the product has to be, has to hurt for them to make an extra or whatever money they want to make. But it is what it is, I guess. I think that the days of hitting in practice, I think that affects it too. Yeah. I think as you said, not playing in preseason. If you look at Aaron Rodgers, right, last night, yesterday, he looked old, Bobby. He looked like an old man, a dad yelling at his kids on the field. I mean, I don't know how the Jets are going to end up this season. And we could talk about the Jets a little bit. And we'll talk about the Commanders right after this. I just don't know what's wrong with the Jets. I mean, it seemed to me that they had a very winnable game against the Broncos. This is a game that they should win, and if they're going to be a playoff team, they got to beat these teams.
Oh,
And
yeah,
they lay an egg. And I get Denver's defense was great. I love their defense. Their offense ran the ball a little bit, but the Jets. I mean, Sauce Gardner didn't want to tackle a guy, and their star wide receiver Wilson and Rodgers aren't on the same page yet. And Rodgers, once they found out he was hurt, they sent the Sharks after him and kind of just made him throw the ball faster than he wanted to, and he looked awful at the end of the game. What are your thoughts on the Jets and their team? I don't get it.
Well, I don't know how you could be considered a playoff team if Bo Nix beats you.
Yeah.
Bo Nix. I mean, he started off the opening. He looked like he was lost opening day.
Agree.
And now he didn't light the world up yesterday, but neither did Rodgers.
Right.
Rodgers, his demeanor. I mean, his face. I was watching some of the game. In his demeanor, his facial expressions, the way he was, he's not having fun.
No.
So if you're not having fun and you're a 40-something-year-old quarterback and you look like a 40-something-year-old quarterback and your defense lets Bo Nix beat you, I don't know how you could be considered a playoff football team. I just don't. I can't see it.
No. And you know, Bobby, my co-host Jack is a big Jet fan. And I said this to him, and he kind of took me to task on it. I said, listen, Rodgers was playing in a game. There was 4 minutes left. The Jets were down by a couple scores, and they pulled Rodgers so he didn't get hurt. Now, right. Rodgers actually gets hurt. You see what they're doing. They're sending the whole team after him. They're blitzing every play, and he's getting blitzed. He's getting sacked, and he's getting hurt. Why not pull him then? Why pull him when he's healthy? And he can maybe bring him back, and then he actually gets hurt. And why did they not put Tyrod Taylor in there, who's more mobile? And I'm not saying he's a better quarterback than Rodgers, but if they're concerned about him being hurt, Denver knew what he was going to do, and he looked awful at the end because they just kept blitzing him and knocking him down. I know he's not the same quarterback. I get it, but he is more mobile, and maybe this injury becomes a nagging injury all year.
I mean, I like Tyrod Taylor. You know, I don't mean to jump back around, but Thursday night, Jones could not throw the long ball.
Right.
He missed. Tyrod. Right. Now, you took Tyrod last year in a Giants uniform playing when Jones was hurt. He flung that ball down the field a lot. Yes. He made a lot of nice long connections with someone who's not even playing, and that's Hyatt.
Right.
It ran under a lot of those balls last year. So what happened to Rodgers there? I would have no problem putting Tyrod Taylor into the football game. I like Tyrod Taylor. He moves well. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. He throws a long ball. He has nice touch.
I know. Listen. I know there's no comparison between the two quarterbacks. No. But when your guy is getting hit and coming up hobbling every play. Right. That's when I get nervous. That's when I start saying, hey, I got to protect this guy because he's the reason why we're either going to, do well in the playoffs or not. And he kind of gave me, Jack gave me a little slack over that. Like, wow, Tyrod, if Rodgers can't do that, then we don't, then blah, blah, blah. But listen, man, you did it already once. I'm just going with your protocol there, pulling them when there's 6 minutes left. But anyway, let's get to the Commanders. More important than the Jets for sure. The Commanders with Jaden Daniels totally destroyed the Cardinals in every facet of the game, Bobby. Defensively, running the ball. Jaden Daniels is throwing for more yards than any rookie now. I mean, he's running for a touchdown every game. I still have a problem with them. I still don't think they're going to do it, but they prove me wrong every week, and they really proved me wrong this week.
I like Daniels a lot. He was of the big three quarterbacks coming out the draft, and he was the one that the Giants were going to make that big deal to come up. He was the apple of my eye coming out of college. Yeah. I was really hoping that the Giants would be able to pull something off to land it down. I wasn't crazy about May, so I didn't. Daniels was who I thought was going to be the real deal. So far, he looks to be the real deal of the top quarterbacks of the there was 5 quarterbacks drafted, I believe, in the first round. He looks to be the cream of the crop at this point, at this juncture of his career. Certainly, as Bill Parcells would say, I'm not going to put him in the Hall of Fame yet,
right?
But I think that if he keeps this type of trajectory, he's going to be someone who we're going to hate to see twice a year. Unfortunately,
I think so. I really do. I mean, and that was the game against the Giants. They say, well, we only lost 20-18, and we could listen. Jaden Daniels was just warming up, too, guys. So don't act like that's what he is now, or he's going to be when we play him again. But yeah. I mean, shame on me, Bobby. I thought Jaden Daniels would be the best quarterback coming out. Him and Bo Nix, I thought. Jaden Daniels is definitely right now the best quarterback that came out during the draft. There's no doubt about it. So we got 2 games tonight. We've got a backup quarterback who runs the ball a lot. He was an all-pro, and he was a backup. He made the all-pro team. That's how great the all-pro the Pro Bowl is now. So Huntley is 3-6 with the Ravens. Good running quarterback. He's got to be able to get the ball to his 2 big wide receivers. They got a good running game. Tennessee is a decent defensive team that has a quarterback that likes making bad mistakes at the end of the game. I don't know who's going to win this. He's got to be able to get the ball to the wide receivers, I guess, Bobby, for Miami to win.
Yeah, I like Miami in this game. I think Miami will win the game. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Miami will win this game. Do you think that Miami might pick up the phone and call Pittsburgh up and see if Wilson's available?
It's a good question. I've heard that rumors. I've heard about the Bryce Young rumor that we didn't talk about. I guess I've heard a lot of rumors. I don't know. Is Russell Wilson that good still? I mean,
probably
I guess he's better
than what they have.
Yeah.
And they're built right now to have a winning season. I'm not sure they're possibly a playoff team. I don't know how deep they go in the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe
they're a possible playoff. A wild card. I think the Bills. I think the Bills will win that division.
I think so.
They're a possible wild card playoff team, and with the right quarterback, and certainly Wilson's better than they have. And yes. I don't know if Wilson's going to see the field in Pittsburgh, and why not listen to what they want to offer?
I wouldn't disagree that it would be an upgrade. That's for sure. It would take him maybe a week or 2 to get together. He's an experienced quarterback, so he should be on the same page with them pretty quickly. He likes to throw the ball deep, so maybe. The Miami defense is, to me, their biggest heel anyway, even when Tua is playing. We also got Seattle and Detroit. I think you like Detroit. I kind of like Detroit, but they're definitely going to have to run the ball. If they can't run the ball, then maybe Seattle beats them. I don't know.
Yeah, I like Detroit, and then I think another close game though. I think as good as Detroit is, and I think Detroit's one of the best teams in the NFL. But I think Seattle can keep this game close, and I think that both games are a decent Monday night affair. Actually, if you want to watch 2 competitive teams play each other, this is a good lineup for them tonight.
I would agree, and I wish, as we talked about before the show too, that they staggered these games so you could watch both and not have to go back and forth. I think it's ridiculous. So, folks, we're coming to the end of the show. Remember, next week we're going to go over Spider Lockhart, a great name for a great all-pro safety, one of the best in the league at his time. We'll talk about him next week. We'll be back same Giants time, same Giants channel, 5 p.m. Eastern on Monday night on the Roku channel and our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us tonight, folks. We appreciate it. Bobby, you have a great night. Enjoy the games tonight, folks. And if you're going out tonight to watch the game, behave yourselves.